All right, so let's discuss where we are right now with the conference. We're joined by political analyst Thabo Shole-Mashao. Thabo, thank you for your time and good morning to you. And at the back of what Bule Mabe had to say in terms of ANC members relying on internal structures, why do you think that is not the case? It's not the first time we're seeing ANC members head to the courts in an attempt to either interdict and stop the conferences or to stop the party from continuing with their jobs or with their conference because they did not have confidence that the very same internal structures can be relied on to resolve conflict.
Good morning, Tumelo, and good morning to your viewers. This simply tells us the ANC members do not necessarily express confidence in their own leadership. They do not have confidence in their own internal structures. They've been disappointed many times, and what we are getting clearly from not only delegates but ANC members in general is that once bitten, twice shy. These issues are often swept under the table. You'd remember the ANC Youth League conference in Nasrec 2008 and many other subsequent conferences. There have been serious dissatisfactions about the outcome, and then the NEC or other leadership structures do not satisfactorily deal with the with the matters as the members would like. And it is seen that at times, for the purposes of peace, then issues would be swept under the carpet and the matters would be allowed to flow by without thoroughly ventilating them in order to find some political peace in the interim. But this also tells us something very important. It says that in the upcoming conferences, we are going to see people testing their luck, taking the ANC through litigation and attempting to also interdict conferences for one issue or the other. It's a precedent that has been set and it will continue, and not just in the larger provincial conferences, and perhaps in December we might see one or two attempts as well from various delegates or members of the ANC attempting to stop the national conference through the doors of the courts.
Yeah, no doubt about that. So to Jabulani Sithole point now, did the NEC err in allowing the PEC to go ahead with conference before the 19 votes in Ekurhuleni were actually resolved?
You see, it's a matter that is very important and you can't allow it to go on for some time, especially 2 to 3 weeks, as the court had said. It is a worrying time to allow such a matter. The NEC would have nipped this in the bud and we wouldn't be where we are if they decided that as the highest decision-making structure in between conferences, it needed to jump in and show leadership, knowing how the lower structures can at times be embedded to certain individuals, be embedded or influenced by the strength of certain factions. The NEC would have helped a lot by parachuting themselves onto the matter and making a pronouncement which couldn't be challenged by the lower structures, as it is the highest decision-making body. However, they deferred it to the PEC, and now we are where we are. They could have avoided all of this if they had taken the bull by the horns and pronounced on this once and for all. And it's also a lesson to them moving forward that such matters have to be handled expeditiously and sensitively. Postponing it and prolonging it, if anything else, invites more troubles to the party.
Yeah, and with that being said, we saw, of course, judgments on Magume's, judgment. He says the applicant, this is Jabulani Sithole in this instance, failed to make out a case for urgency. Surprised at all by this judgment by Judge Magume?
No, I think, we have to commend the courts in this particular instance, as much as at times when we criticize the courts, we are criticized. But this time, we have to commend the courts. In a very short space of time, the lucid wisdom of the judge is just spot on. And he mentions something very practical and rational. He says, one, Jabulani Sithole waited. He could have taken this action if he felt it was urgent immediately after the conference. 2 to 3 weeks later, on the day of the conference, that's when he only comes in, whilst he had over 14 days and additional to deal with this matter. However, he didn't choose to. So that deals with the issue of the urgency of the matter. But also, the judge does mention that certain facts have not been made available and have not been highlighted. And the fact that he feels that it must be dealt with right now does not necessarily make it urgent according to the law. So I was not necessarily surprised, and I'm thinking that the judgment is very progressive, it is sharp, and it is just on point. Because if it's urgent this was clearly a political stance on the side of Jabulani Sithole. He was making a political statement more than a legal statement, and the court saw it for what it is, and it dealt with it decisively.
Yeah, and Thabo, we understand that nominations will obviously get underway shortly for top positions. What do you make of the different slates and nominations so far? Obviously, Lebogang Maile and Panyaza Lesufi hotly contesting the chairpersonship. What do you make of the names that are, of course, at the ballots for ANC members to select their decision?
Lebogang Maile has got a bone to chew with Panyaza Lesufi. In the previous election, you'd remember that Lebogang Maile lost to Panyaza Lesufi, and now he wants to also make a point that he is a prominent political leader in Gauteng, and he can take this reign and he can win a conference. The implications are huge for whoever doesn't win this conference, and not just internally, because we do know that in 2024, whoever wins here stands a chance of becoming a premier. Yes, the ANC will tell me about their 3 names and the lists, but more so, whoever takes this conference between Maile and Panyaza is more likely to be a candidate of premiership for Gauteng province. So there's a lot at stake. But also the implications of this, one way or the other, whoever wins, it simply says that David Makhura, as the premier of Gauteng, will be an even weaker lame duck at the helm of the premiership of Gauteng, because then you will definitely have 2 centers of power. But between these two, between Panyaza Lesufi and Lebogang Maile, we have seen them showing some sobriety, in a sense, where they are saying to their supporters, this is not only about leadership contestations. There are issues. In that way, they managed to tone down the heated temperature and divert the attention from only the contestation and taking it to other issues that are affecting ANC and the people of Gauteng. But lest we forget that the negotiations that have been purported to be taking place on the sidelines of conference, people saying that maybe Lebogang must be coming in as a deputy and Panyaza as the chairperson, that those negotiations, when you start negotiating the outcomes of what ought to be an election, you are really muddying the waters, and you are somehow diverting the course of democracy. It must go down to the vote if there is more than one candidate. Reaching compromises around negotiation tables sets a wrong precedent, and it says that leadership can always be discussed and decided not by the people, but by the influential few at the top. So it's a very close one to call. I was there yesterday, I came through yesterday, but it's a very close one to call. But also, judging conference Tumelo by the loudness of the singing is usually very dangerous. We know what happened in 2007 in Mangaung, when one group was very vocal and singing out loud, but the outcome was very different. The ballot and the song are 2 different things.
And equally important, I think, Thabo, is to take notice of them and some of the names that are gunning for, other positions. TK are there, definitely looking to get the secretary position. We know that he already has support coming from Ekurhuleni, but also we see Masuku, Bandile Masuku, looking to actually get the treasurer position. What do you make of those names, especially when you look at TK and what he has done in Ekurhuleni, and also we look at Bandile Masuku and and some of the issues that he had to obviously go through with the SIU. He came out speaking to eNCA saying that he has confidence that he's the right man for the job because he feels vindicated, that he's been maintaining his innocence. Yes, we may question the timing of his action against, wrongdoing within the health department under his tenure. However, he says nonetheless he did act and therefore is befitting to occupy the role of treasurer.
And it's for the ANC members to decide on that. And usually with the ANC conferences, this, as we know it, this provincial conference in Gauteng is more of the battle of regions more than anything else, Tumelo, because certain regions, as you have rightly pointed out right now, TK Ngiza, he is from Ekurhuleni. Ekurhuleni will definitely stand behind him. Johannesburg has been flirting with Ekurhuleni as far as the slates are concerned, and we see Sidibeng also going on the side of Panyaza Lesufi with Mr. Tulani there going against the current secretary, Mr. Kawe. And now all these names are very important because if delegates truly want unity as they claim to do, we will see it through the ballots. You are talking about Dr. Masuku here, and in this instance, he's going for the position of treasurer. As much as he may be a known name to you and I, amongst ANC delegates, other people may still want to contest the position. What I'm gathering from the ground is that Pakstawi is also very interested in keeping that position and running with it. And he might be raised from the floor. As you would know, there was a threshold that was necessary for candidates to make it on the ballot. And many candidates did not make it onto the ballot, like Tasneem, and I think Pax also didn't make it on the ballot, but they nonetheless stand a chance of being raised from the floor. And that threshold was testing, if anything else, the support of the branches for that particular nomination. So the names that you are raising fall on different slates. And Masuku, for one, he left government unceremoniously. He is still dissatisfied by the way that he left. He feels that he was hard done by and he was a sacrificial lamb. And this is his big entrance back into the provincial politics. And this will also open the doors for him to make decision as far as provincial cabinet is concerned. So this means survival for him and relevance in the Gauteng politics.
Yeah, and I'm keen to hear from you, Thabo. I mean, should we expect, a mixed sort of, picture of leaders here? Because the ANC Women's League have been calling for more women representation in top six. And I'm sure they're not only referring to, national conference, but regional, provincial, that representation of more women in these positions they've been calling for. So when we look at the likes of Mbali Hlophe, obviously touted to occupy deputy, secretary, getting that support at least from the likes of the Tshwane region. Should we expect to see ANC members giving more sort of representation in these leadership positions within the ANC?
What we will see is the result of mobilization on the ground, and those who've worked the ground will definitely try to make it. But also the issue of money cannot be divorced. I'd be completely disingenuous and naive and out of touch with reality if I do not mention the fact that in these conferences, money plays a huge role, an immense role indeed. It plays that role behind the scenes where delegates are somehow bribed, if you will, or delegates are endeared to certain slates, certain candidates who are standing. So, Tumelo, as much as you are raising a very important issue, which the ANC has been raising for quite some time, of trying to strive for 50-50 and gender parity, even more than 50-50, it will really go down to the bone and to say who has done the groundwork. The groundwork is not just mobilization. It is not just campaigning. It is not just asking people to vote for you, getting T-shirts. The groundwork, unfortunately, unfortunately, in the ANC of politics, in the politics of the ANC, it also means that those with the access to the purse strings will also somehow have an influential voice, and they might see themselves onto the ballot.
Well, I appreciate you speaking to me this morning, political analyst Thabo Shole-Mashao. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Should be an interesting one to watch out. Keep it locked right here on eNCA. We'll be showing you, of course, all the developments around what comes out of the Gauteng leg of the ANC conference. We know that Panyasali Sufi and, of course, Lebrang Maile Morena going for their chairpersonship, and we'll see how those nominations today go.
I think the fact that it's difficult to tell, as Thabo Shole-Mashao says, who might take it makes it even more interesting.
Yeah.
You know, obviously we hope that it's peaceful. We do know how sometimes these things tend to go. So we do hope, and until the end of the Congress, it remains peaceful. But still to come.